Welcome to Citizen Innovation Lab's roundtable on navigating the journey to scale in legal tech. Citizen Innovation Lab is a collaborative effort by CICO and Agami Network India aimed at catalyzing innovation and entrepreneurship to address some of the biggest challenges facing Indian citizens, whether it's in civic tech, prop tech, or legal tech. The program focuses on evangelization of the space, creating in-depth conversations and opportunities in these areas, and incubating, seeding innovative ventures. While we are focused on understanding and showcasing the legal tech opportunity in some of the previous roundtables and discussions, the objective of this roundtable will largely to be create a deeper understanding of the challenges scaling up business models in the sector, how is the ecosystem supporting startups scale their growth, and what are some of the gaps in the ecosystem that entrepreneurs would like to see plugged so that they can go out and sort of scale. Joining us for the roundtable are three people really at the cutting edge of the sector. We have Komal Gupta. Komal is the Chief Innovation Officer at Sri Amarchand Mangaldas. She is responsible for the firm's transformation using appropriate legal technologies, processes, and continual innovation. Komal also manages Prague, one of India's leading and first legal tech incubator, where she oversees a 6-month program for each cohort from crowdsourcing ideas and screening pitches through the emergence of market-ready solutions for the legal tech industry. We also have Pulkit Anand. Pulkit is, of course, the founder of ProVakil, one of India's leading legal tech startups. They're focused on building legal ops solutions for enterprise companies. ProVakil works with about 200 organizations in India to solve data and process automation challenges for them. Welcome, Pulkit. And finally, we have Namita Shah. Namita is the co-founder of Resolve 360, a legal tech company specializing in online dispute resolution via electronic mediation and arbitration. Namita has been recognized as one of the top 60 women transforming in India initiative by Government of India. And Komal, maybe I can get started with you. At Praram, you've sort of been in this journey of really working with entrepreneurs very early in their journeys, right? So what I'd love to learn a bit more about is the program that Praram offers, and also what are some of the key traits that you look at entrepreneurs while selecting them through the program?
Thanks, Tariq. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my knowledge, learnings, experience with the group. I'd like to begin with an introduction to Praram, because not many would know what Praram is. Praram is the country's first legal tech incubator, which has identified the need to support domestic talent to develop quality legal products, quality legal tech products, in-house, as in the country, rather than us trying to find solutions and going out of the country, buying foreign products, not only just, spending a lot of money, but also trying to make an arrangement. It's not really that all foreign technologies are solving our problems absolutely the way they should. And we are just trying to modify, adjust with those technologies so that we get some benefit. Some efficiency is better than zero efficiency. However, we figured out very early. 2017 is when the Innovation Lab came into existence in Sri Amarchand Mangaldas, and 2018 is when we started with the idea and developed the idea of Praram, and therefore became the first legal tech incubator in the country. Supported by a law firm, a law firm's incubator. Now, the real purpose was that we identified, when I joined in, I tried to find problems, and I tried to look for technical solutions, technology-based solutions rather, for those problems within the country. And the finding was that one, there was very less supply. So there were very few, you're looking for a problem A to be solved, people are trying to solve problem B. So you're not really getting the real solution. And people who are somewhere close to your problem solving are actually not really still solving the real problem. So, that is what was the problem. So there is no deficiency of talent. We found that there was deficiency of support and direction. And that is what we wanted to bridge through Praram, and we hopefully have done justice to the first and the second cohort. I'm actually fortunate that if I wanted to give some examples, I have Namita, who's been a part of the second cohort very recently, over here. So, I can refer and ask her to share some experiences. So that really is what is Pradam. Now, what do we do in Pradam? Like I said, we are trying to look for tech developers who are developing legal tech that is solving a, that is actually solving a real problem by providing a practical solution, by providing a scalable solution. And we are going to be supporting, helping them develop the product so that it becomes a quality product, not just a quality product for CAM, but for the legal industry as a whole in the country. And second, that they should also on the side develop business skills. So, what Pradam does really is that, and this Namita will tell you, normally in your normal 4 months, any regular 4 months, how many sales pitches would you make? How many people would pick your brains and ask you questions and, do a critical analysis of your product in your regular 4 months of work, of normal business as usual? While when you join Pradam, you are continuously, meeting subject matter experts, you're continuously being interrogated, your product is going through a critical analysis, your product is going through a thorough testing, and then there is thorough feedback given to you. So that makes sure that the product that is going to get out is actually, and once out in the market, is actually has gone through all those rigorous tests and screenings and is providing a solution. Now for that, we have to be very, very sure that we are selecting the right startups. So the first cohort, when we did, we were open to any stage startups. We had idea stage, we had a ready to scale stage startup as well. But in the second cohort, because it was virtual, we also wanted to implement the learnings from the first cohort. We decided that, and we reduced the duration from 6 months, we reduced it to 4 months. We decided to go with only ready to scale stage startups. So that selection criteria might change from cohort to cohort, depending on what we want to do next. But really, that has been what we did for the first and the second cohort. Now, when we allow applications, anybody can apply. We have the form with all those criteria. But then, how do we really judge who do we select? The selection process is multiple rounds of pitching and interviews. And in those, basically, we are evaluating on 5 broad criteria, which has 18 sub-criteria. So instead of me going through 18 sub-criteria, I'll actually talk about 5 and I'll explain them. The first thing that I focus on is the team. Who is the team behind the product? What is the team? What are the founders like? User validation. Is the product, how good is the product? How, as a user, how do I feel about the product? What is the business model? It is very important that we are trying to build a scalable business model that's going to sustain in the market. It's not just that today we feel like developing something, we come to, 2 friends come together and then forget about it. So we want to make sure that it is sustainable. What is the design and implementation? And again, there are broad criteria under that. And then what is the strategic alignment with Pradam, with CAM, with the legal industry? So these are the 5 broad criteria. Now, if I have to sum it up, basically, who can deliver a quality product by providing a practical solution to real problems with a strong backing of the team? The team had, so one lesson that I've learned is that no matter how great your idea may be, look, that idea is nothing without seamless, excellent execution. And that excellent execution, yes, all other factors are there, the support, the investors, the money and all of that, and, the buyers. But I think the most important thing is the founders. How strong are the founders? How committed are they to the idea? And that is, coming to the next part of your question, that how do you think these guys are going to be successful and what makes them different from the rest? Why would I be interested in picking, and who would I be interested in picking, for Pradam? People, the founders have to be willing to learn, to unlearn, to adapt, to change. That is very important. And I've repeated this n number of times. Again, Namita will tell you that that, you are, when you're selling legal tech, you have the most difficult clients in the world. Okay, when you're meeting your clients and you've got the longest sales cycle, and how are you going to not let yourself give up? How are you going to, and plus the clients, like I said, difficult clients. So difficult client means that, you know, medium will not work. You have to be the best. So when you are selling to the client, one little, mistake, one little thing here and there will not work. And that is why you have to be sure that when your clients are, standards and quality, then you cannot be anything less. The second is that you're going to get upfront, blunt feedback. No one's going to be nice to you. No one's going to be like, because you're not in an incubator, you're not being mentored, you're going selling, and you're meeting your buyer. Your buyer is going to be very blunt on the face, whether you like it, if they like it, fantastic, very good for you. If they don't like it, they're going to be blunt on the face, and you should be able to take that feedback. So, it's just to say that, oh, I think I've developed a great product. My clients, the customers are not great. They are the ones who need to learn. They are the ones who lack knowledge. I think if you have that approach of mind, you are going to fail. You have to go with your customers know it all. You know it all too. But when you are meeting your customers, if your customers are telling you something, please be open to the feedback, and please come back and do an analysis and think about, okay, what is it that's missing? If there's some lawyer who said something, has to be some reason for it. Go meet a few more people, compile all of that feedback and make sure that you are working on that feedback and changing, if you get a chance to get, to have a second meeting, make sure that you've improved. And I'm going to give you one example, a very recent one. It's so fresh in my mind that I can't help but mention that example. In 2018, when we started discovering, domestic legal tech, we met a company named Legit Quest. They are doing legal research work, and using AI and doing some fancy stuff now. When we met in 2018, they were a startup. They were developing the product, but we had seen a few better products than them, which is why we started using one of the more mature products then. Now, 2020, they wanted to meet us again. And at that time, I thought that, okay, my first question was, okay, I'm happy to meet you, but have you done anything different from when we met last? Because if you're going to show me the same thing that you did in 2018, I am not willing to meet you then. Because, again, we're going to have the same feedback, and we'll only be spending unnecessary time, with each other, and it'll go nowhere. I was pleasantly surprised, and so was my team. We were like wowed by the changes and by the development these guys made in the last 2 years. And we were like, wow, this is what we want to see. Okay, you will always get another chance if you've made a difference. If you have come up with something that can now, you can go to the customer, hey, you gave us that feedback, you told us these 5 things, and you know what? We heard the same 5 things from 5 other clients. And here we are, we took all of your feedback and we've developed this based on your feedback. So I think that is very important. Flexibility, customization, willing to listen to your customer. And one more important thing, are you trying to, earn all the money that you put in the development from one customer? I think customers are also very sophisticated buyers. They know what they're buying. They know what the market is. They know what the right pricing should be of a product. So don't decide the price based on your customer. If you have a standard price list, discounts are good to give, but discounts also have to have a slab that, if it is this much of business, and it has to be uniform. It's a very small, setup. So don't try to just get all the revenue from one client, because otherwise then it'll be difficult for you to get business, So be fair. And one last thing that I'd say is that you have to also have the right people selling the product. If you hire somebody called salesperson, and that salesperson doesn't know anything about your product and just goes and sells because it's a commission-based role, you'll find that even clients who are willing to meet you, you will lose them. So you have to be sure that the person who's client facing, whether in a sales role or whether as a customer support role, has to know how to deal with clients and has to be in and out, like, of the product. You have to know what you're selling to your customers. So if you know all of that, you are absolutely the right choice for Pranam, and you're also absolutely going to get success, with your difficult, demanding clients, but who always appreciate quality. So if you have all of that, you will definitely get through.
Thanks, Komal, for your sort of inputs from a Praram lens, but also as a buyer of legal tech from a CAM lens. And maybe Pulkit, maybe I can come to you and Namita first. And Pulkit, you've been at it for 6 odd years with the starting of Provokil and really become a pioneer of the industry, right? Really driving the software movement in the law and justice space. I think as an early entrepreneur, an entrepreneur in the very early stages, right? Like, what are the most important things to get really right early on in the journey, right? And what should they really focus on, and what can come later?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me here, Tariq, on this panel. Really happy to be here. And thank you for the kind introduction as well. I think you're too kind when introducing us. So with regards to early journeys, right? And I mean, I always say whenever I talk about my journey with Provokil, so I've been in Provokil, I'll be completing my 4 years this year, right? But I've been in the startup ecosystem for about 8 odd years, right? And in the Provokil team, so one of my co-founders, Akshat, he is the lawyer on the team. I am the engineer. So whenever I am a part of legal tech discussions, I always start with the disclaimer that I am not a lawyer, right? I'm an engineer. I'm an outsider trying to build something in legal, right? So excuse my misunderstanding of legal if I don't get everything precisely right. So the advice that I have to give to young startups or people just starting out on this journey would be generic in the sense that a lot of my beliefs come from just building startups in general rather than just talking about legal tech startups, because legal tech startups are not a different species, right? I mean, you're again, the fundamentals of the business are the same, and you're trying to solve a problem, right? So in terms of starting up, I believe a unique insight is very important, right? People who are starting up, even if you're a solo founder or if you have co-founders, my advice in general to people is don't start up just because, right? I mean, if the reason for your starting up is I don't like my job, or there are so many startups in India that are happening, so I also want to, me too, right? I also want to do a startup. And again, I mean, this is a subjective opinion, right? I'm not saying this is the only manner of thinking, but I don't subscribe to that thought, right? I believe having a unique customer insight or a unique insight about a market is very important before you start on that journey. And when I say unique insight, I'm not talking about differentiating yourself from competitors because of the heck of it, or being on the bleeding edge of technology, right? Saying that, okay, हम ये machine learning से करेंगे, right? या हम ये artificial intelligence से करेंगे, या आजकल XYZ बहुत चल रहा है तो ये try करके देखते हैं, right? Rather than pushing your product down the market, right? Pushing anything down the market is always hard, but having a unique customer insight में आपको बेचने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, right? अगर if your starting point is a unique customer insight, your first few sales are not going to look like sales. They are going to look like, where the hell were you till now? I needed you so badly, right? And so when you start approaching things like that, you will find that your initial problem statements start to look very, very simple, right? अभी आप प्रोवोकिल देख लो या आप कोई भी कंपनी देख लो, उनके वेबसाइट पे there would be 20, 30, 35 things that they do. There would be tons of pages where they talk about these are all of our offerings. Young startups should not get lost in 10 features, 25 solutions in categories, right? Simplify your problem statement, start small, but that small thing that you figure out, make sure that that is a unique customer insight, right? So drawing from our Provokil experience, right, tying this to our Provokil experience, that unique customer insight came from Akshat, right? Today, if I talk about Provokil, right, it is sound very fancy and jazzy. Okay, we are building a process automation legal law solution for enterprise law firms and lawyers across 5 geographies and whatnot, right? But the first version of Provokil that we built in 2015 did one simple thing and one thing only, right? That app, you went and entered your Supreme Court of India case number, and whenever it got listed, the lawyer got a notification on their mobile phone saying, hey, your case has been listed. That's it, right? And like it sounds so simple, but in 2015, when people saw it, when we showed people the demo of the product, कि sir, यहाँ पे आप ये case number डालोगे, तो जब ये case लग जाएगा कोर्ट में, तो आपको notification अपने आप आ जाएगा. तो people were like, the response that we got was, क्या बात कर रहे हो? Like, are you serious? Right? Is this for real? So that really was the seed of Provokil, right? And we try to be very true to that. Once you are on that path, right? And the product that I described, right? Where you enter your case number and you get your update whenever the case is listed, we got our first 100 customers like this, right? It is not a small number, right? And that is how strong that fit was, right? Everybody we showed it to them, and we asked, do you want it? They were like, yeah. How much does it cost? Yeah. So that was our seed. We got our first 100 customers from that. Post that, drawing from what Komal mentioned, right? We as a company try to keep our ears very close to the ground in terms of what the customer is saying, right? And if you keep your ears close to what the customer is saying, they will show you the path, right? Because today, if I am building a solution for general counsels and chief financial officers of the largest organizations in the country, none of the founding team members are GCs or CFOs, right? We are not even on that career path to become a GC one day or a CFO one day, right? So there is no way that I am even capable of thinking about their problems sitting in the 4 walls of a room, right? So unless we have our ears close to the ground, close to the customers, there is no way to make progress. And maybe what I'm talking about applies more to our kind of businesses, right? So we are talking about B2B businesses, SaaS businesses, where you are building your solutions for companies, law firms, perhaps lawyers. It would not be appropriate to call lawyers a retail customer, right? Because even a single person lawyer chamber acts like a business at the end of the day, right? So in that, making progress becomes very difficult if you're not listening to your customers. And like today, if Provokil is building solutions for general counsels and chief financial officers, understand that the path from a case updates for Supreme Court to today has a lot of milestones in between, right? More than we can count, right? Because it was not like from there we were like, okay, from here the next stop is building legal ops solutions, right? Our next stop was, hey, you have a great app, but my practice is not restricted to just Supreme Court, right? Could you possibly give me Delhi High Court's information here as well? And then we said, okay, wow, like they want more courts here. So then we said, okay, Delhi High Court, right? Then district courts. Then suddenly it became pan India. Then suddenly it became contracts or compliances or whatnot, right? So a step-by-step process, if you keep doing it, you will be a mile ahead sooner than you realize, right? So broadly, yeah, I mean, those 2 feedback or advice, if you want to put it that way, is what it would be for young founders or young startups on that journey, irrespective of whether they are building it for legal or not.
Yeah. Pulkit, maybe just a quick follow-up on that, right? The broader sense of, let's say, something in the law and justice space, it's largely opaque, right? You don't really understand how, let's say, a judiciary functions unless you are a part of a law firm. You really don't understand how a law firm functions, right? Like in this sort of sector, how do you really keep your ears on? How do you deeply understand your customer? Are there certain tactics one can deploy, right? Yeah, I would love to.
No, so it's a very simple answer, right? Persistence. I mean, if you don't know something, if you ask it to 100 people, maybe the 101st person will give you an insight, right? Tariq, I can't tell you the number of people in the industry who have made us sit in their rooms and like have a 4 hour, 6 hour conversation with us saying कि पुलकित अभी तो तुम लोग को पता ही नहीं है कि तुम लोग को बनाना क्या है and I'm like, yeah, you are absolutely right, please tell us what we don't know, and the next 6 hours they will give us a primer on what needs to be built, right? So that's what I was talking about, right? Ki not knowing to dekho, even today I don't know a lot of things about the market, right? I mean, as a company, a business is always learning, right? It is always figuring things out. We are still in that stage. But that is what I said, right? Matlab, starting from a blank canvas, if you are starting from a blank canvas and if you have no idea what to do, I think the hunt for a unique customer insight is paramount, right? Like you said, right? Ki you don't know how a judiciary functions unless you have been a part of law firm. I don't think so, right? Number one, you can know how the judiciary functions a lot of other ways. But how I would put it is ki that is not the question I'm looking for the law firm to answer. The question that I want the law firm to answer is, what are your problems? What do you struggle with? Right? It could be कि जुडिशरी उनका प्रॉब्लम है ही नहीं या केस लॉ अपडेट उनका प्रॉब्लम है ही नहीं उनकी और जनरली क्या होता है कस्टमर प्रॉब्लम्स आर वेरी स्मॉल लाइक व्हेन यू लिसन टू देयर प्रॉब्लम्स राइट यू आर लाइक कि ये तो उतना डिफिकल्ट नहीं होना चाहिए राइट यू विल बी सरप्राइज हाउ ऑफन यू विल एनकाउंटर दैट व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग टू कस्टमर्स स्पेशली नॉन टेक्निकल पीपल राइट so yeah, so I think persistence matlab I think in today's information age figuring things out is so easy, right? You just need to persist and talk to enough people to help you.
Got it. No, thanks, Pulkit. And Namita, maybe let me come to you next, right? Again, you've also been on this fantastic journey with Prasol, right? Like adding new things, pivoting, and then learning about the sector as you go, right? So what are some of the main things that you need to get right very early in your journey? And the second thing I'll say, what are some mistakes that early stage entrepreneurs should absolutely avoid, right? Like, so would love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Thanks, Tariq, firstly for the warm introduction, and it's such a pleasure again to share the virtual stage with Komal, Pulkit as well. So, on the note that yes, it's been an absolutely interesting journey, and through it all, there are a few things that I think stand out in terms of the lessons we've learned and what we try to take care of moving forward as well. Of course, I absolutely agree to everything that Pulkit also said, very, very apt and on point, and of course, Komal as well. A couple of things that, we've realized as well. First one being, when they talk about product market fit, what exactly does that mean? Because often startups are so covered with jargons and the entire ecosystem is about product market fit. You need your customer acquisition cost to be less than the revenues, life cycles, all of that. But understanding the crux of what it truly means, I think, is number one. Because what I've realized is, people often think that what you need to start up is a better way to solve a problem that was currently being solved in a particular way, or to solve a problem that did not really have a solution, and then that's it. And then everything else will fall into place. But that's actually just step one of a very, very, very long journey. Because as entrepreneurs or as problem solvers, people think that, okay, this is a more optimal way to solve a particular problem. But we often tend to think of it in a silo. And I think that's what needs to change as well in terms of when you're looking to solve a problem. That's something that I've also learned along the way, that when we look to solve a problem, okay, we do have some draft or some way or some mechanism to solve it in a better way than currently it's being handled. But how well does that fit into your customer ecosystem? Especially if you look at it from a B2B or a legal tech perspective, the ecosystem is not going to change to fall in line with you. You will have to begin in a way that you can fit into the existing ecosystem and then bring about that change. So how does your product or your solution fit into an existing ecosystem, and how can you grow from there? That's one of the biggest things that we've learned along the way, that we may have an X way to solve a problem that may be really, really better than everything else that exists there. But if adopting that X is going to be even a tad bit inconvenient for your target customers, then you're going to have it. So that bridge of making it adaptable to an existing ecosystem is something worth figuring out at the starting itself so that you can plan accordingly. And we've also realized that a good way to do that, and I think Pulkit also did touch upon it, is to first roll out a workable product, like how Pulkit mentioned that one thing that it did. So figure that one thing that you do and don't wait for a million things to be in place before you roll it out. Because you may tend to try and build in 1,000 features without realizing that the main solution is somewhere different from what your target customer is expecting. So it's better to have one working solution and build along the way with your customers. So in a sense that to make your initial customers or your early adopters, as they say, your true stakeholders, and looking to what really they want and implementing feature rollouts and prioritizing your entire roadmap in line with theirs. So that is something that I do definitely think is crucial, especially when we look at it from the angle of legal tech. And when it comes to mistakes and all of that, oh, we've made many. We've made absolutely too many. But I think that's what has helped us come so far as well. Mistakes to avoid, as I said, is to look at the entire solution, not from your lens only, but to the lens of every stakeholder, who you are disrupting, who you are trying to target, and how do you get there. And one key thing, especially if you look at it from a B2B cycle, is who is the decision maker and who is the implementer. So here there is a difference because for any legal tech startup or a legal tech product or any B2B product to actually take shape, it has to be in a way a decision change, a policy change. So that will require somebody at the top management or above level to actually hear you out, understand it, and then tell their organization to implement it. So that is number one, as to who do you pitch to? How do you find the right person who will actually help your solution become acceptable in that organization? And you have to also see that when you pitch to them, it's not to tell them how your product is that good as much as to tell them that how their life will become easier with your product. So redefining your sales pitch, and I think we learned quite a lot of this in the Praram cohort as well, that how do you exactly pitch effectively? So it's important to put yourself in the role of the decision maker and then make your sales pitch and not make it as a founder of a startup. And the second bit of it is the person, after the decision is made to implement a particular solution, it's the team that's actually going to work on your solution every day. And the management or the decision maker is going to take feedback from the team. So to ensure that what are the challenges that team is also facing and how you are helping them. Because most often we've seen that team often is resistant to adopting newer ways, or they're so set in their current ways that they try and look at change not in the most positive manner. So how do you take care of, how do you manage that expectation? By looking at telling the team that, okay, making them feel that how this is going to help them and save time for them as well. Letting them buy into your product, because oftentimes we end up doing one of the two instead of doing both. So talking to the decision makers and to the operative team to ensure that it can smoothly run and that both can then give feedback to each other as well as to the decision of continuing with your product. So I think these are just some of the things that we've learned along the way as well.
Got it. And maybe I think the next question I wanted to ask you and Pulkit was, as you start to scale and you've got your first solution that's got traction, you build your next one, and as you grow through that scale journey, and I know Pulkit, you mentioned, look, at the end of the day, starting up in any sector, the fundamentals are pretty much the same. But I just want to ask this question: are they, because law and justice is such at some level a nascent sector, at some level it's been here around for ages, but are there specific challenges to starting at the law and justice space and working in the sort of the intersection of law and technology, right? Is it, for example, as against some other sectors, digital penetration is probably not the strongest, or it's picking up now, especially in light of COVID and everything around that. But what I would love to sort of understand, what are the challenges specific to law and justice and working in law and technology, and are there specific limiting factors to scaling up? So yeah, Pulkit, would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, the short answer is yes and no, right? It depends. When I think about my career, so I graduated in 2010 from engineering, and 11-12 years later, if I think about my career, I somehow ended up working in an industry that has been a laggard in terms of adopting technology throughout my career, right? I started my career with working in the aviation space. If you look at some of those aviation sector software, they were last developed in 1980s, and like they have only been maintained since then, right? Then I got an opportunity to work in US healthcare space, and US healthcare again, huge potential of deploying technology, traditionally laggard in terms of adopting it, and now in legal, right? So very similar characteristics. But credit where credit is due. So there is an they are looking at adopting tech, and it is a sector which is very conducive to adoption of tech as well, right? So the opportunities are big to be unlocked there. With regards to working specifically in legal tech, right? So I would like to address that by first characterizing the things that make legal unique, right? Some things that are pronounced in the legal industry that are not as such in other industries. The first thing that comes to mind is text, right? Legal as an industry has like tons of text, no matter where you touch legal, right? Whether you touch judgments or whether you touch contracts or compliances, yeah, government orders, government notices, it is a tough web to navigate, and that web is spun with text, right? There is no video processing happening in legal, right? Or there could be in some niche use cases, but by and large, it is mostly text, right? So that is like one thing that we also learned very early on in our journey, that this is something that makes this sector unique, irrespective of geography, right? So this is true not only for India, it is also true for US, it is also true for UK, it is true wherever legal happens. And I think there is a lot to be unlocked there, right? Because text mein there is just so much information. Like these lawyers, I look at, like I've met some of these even at partner level, right? At Amarchand Mangaldas, I know some of those people. They, after 10-15 years of practicing in a law firm, they can read like 100-page documents in 10 minutes. Right? I mean, it is unreal. If you look at them, like how they read documents, right? They can process 100-page documents in 10 minutes. It is insane, right? But technology can aid you there, right? I mean, technology can help unlock that manual effort required to understand and allow lawyers to do what they do best, right? And I think, for example, the company that Komal talked about, LegitQuest, is a company that deals very specifically with text with regards to judgments and using machine learning to sort of make it easier for lawyers to process or understand judgments, right? So I think there is a lot of value to be unlocked there. That is also what causes the problems of working in legal and technologies intersection, right? Because now, if you want to unlock value from text, you need that text, right? And getting that text is so hard, right? I mean, आप चले जाओ सुप्रीम कोर्ट के वेबसाइट पे, वो पीडीएफ डॉक्यूमेंट में टेक्स्ट आप कर लो प्रोसेस, मतलब you understand how tough it is, right? Not just public documents, right? Even private documents, you look at the law firms, how the information retrieval systems, how are they stored? Are they indexable? There would be some private server जहाँ पे LAN होगा, वो उस टीम का एक shared folder होगा, right? उस folder में documents होंगे. Contract iterations are stored as V2.2 dated 19 January, then V2.2, right? वो चल रहा है वैसे, right? Now, when you are, so unless you solve the plumbing, right? And like with data, plumbing becomes very important, right? And unless you solve plumbing, it is very hard for you to do value-added services on top of it, right? So I think access to data, and for me, and especially considering what work we do at ProVakil, access to data has been a challenge, like unlocking value. And I would characterize it as unique to the intersection of technology and legal, right? So,
got it. Got it. And Namita, the same question to you, like as you sort of looked at the space, what's sort of unique and for entrepreneurs coming into the space, what should they know?
Yeah, so I've often said this before as well, that at Resolve we challenges for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there couldn't be any dearth of challenges in this sector. But I'm sure that's the case with other sectors as well. That's number one. But I'll tell you the biggest challenge that we've realized this sector specifically faces is today. When I tell you, or you can also try this, ask 10 of your friends, what do you think of a bank? What comes to your mind when the word bank comes to your mind? And people will often say things like, okay, a mobile app or a wallet or UPI or something like that. Very rarely, or at least not the top three definitions, would be, okay, an institution or a building that I will have to go in, wait in long queues, fill up a manual check anymore, submit it, stuff like that. And ask the same 10 people, what do you think when the word legal comes to your mind? And they'll say, oh, legal, courtroom, wahan pe AC hoga ke nahi, we don't even know that. There'll be heaps and heaps of paper, probably that is taking, that is collecting dust over the years. There'll be somebody sitting and there'll just be like tarikh pe tarikh kind of a thing, stuff like that. Nothing to your name intended, but that's the point, that the biggest challenge there is mindset of acceptance of legal tech. Where as soon as it comes to legal, and when you try to use the word technology in the same sentence, often the reaction is, oh my God, no. That resistance steps into the room before a legal tech solution steps into the room. And I do believe that that's probably one of the biggest challenges that's specific to legal tech cases, where the acceptance right from the people in the ecosystem or the people who are interacting with the ecosystem face. That they often think that, no, we're still too far. But that's not the case. In fact, there are, on the other side, there are people like Komal, of course, who are absolutely trying to merge the two and making an entire ecosystem to merge the two. But more often than not, we've seen that that is the biggest challenge, because how do you fight with that mindset? When there are challenges that a solution can solve, those are being done. But this is a challenge that requires a lot more effort, where it's the ecosystem, it's the periphery of the ecosystem, and everyone together that need to work towards solving that challenge. And that is happening. It's starting to happen. Every aspect, right from judiciary to the government, executive, everyone's coming together to now look at how legal tech becomes more normal than more an exception. And that's why I do believe that for every entrepreneur out there, I think legal tech is an absolutely fertile ground to start up. It was something like what a fintech was about 5 or 10 years ago, and what health tech was probably just a couple years ago. And that's where legal tech is now. In fact, in 2020, 3 IPOs in the US were actually by legal tech companies. So that itself is, showing that, okay, what is happening in this sector? It is on that cusp of the digital revolution, and that's why there's so much opportunity as well to solve these challenges.
Got it. And maybe Komal, I'll come next to you, right? Because you're sort of donning this hat of an ecosystem developer, right? And you've sort of seen this sector evolve. What do you think has probably changed in the last few years, especially with the onset of the pandemic? And what are some of the other areas where, let's say, players like Praram, players like CICO, Umidyar, some of the other players can come in and step in and provide additional ecosystem support to entrepreneurs and help them scale?
So, Tariq, I think Pulkit and Namita, whatever challenges they have said, I enjoyed listening to them, because that is true. That is true. But there has been a change somewhere. If change wouldn't have happened, then, I take the credit, I wouldn't. I'd say that I'd like to give that credit to Praram somewhere, that today we are seeing incubators where they're inviting applications, and under heads they are providing legal tech as a head. Praram has been able to create that much of awareness in the country that legal tech is something. It's not just others. There is something called legal tech. There is special technology that is being developed to solve legal problems. Okay. The challenges that they listed are absolutely real. And one of them is wherever you're trying to do an AI and ML based technology, which is fantastic. foreign technologies which are artificial intelligence based and machine learning based are doing fabulously well on foreign documents, because they get a whole set, they go to the US government, buy a whole set of contracts. So let me give you an example of a contract extraction technology. They just need variety of contracts which the government will provide to you, start doing the machine learning, and then start looking at the result. Now, the result also is fantastic because the documents are very consistent. Now, that's a problem in India. Nothing is consistent. And when Pulkit was talking about the judiciary and judgments, and how much I want a judgment summary, but can I rely on that summary completely? Maybe not, because the product, the input that technology is getting, the technology is fantastic, the developers are fantastic. Now, what can they do if the input is not consistent? Somebody writes a judgment in some way, while there is a rule, there is, when we were in law school, we were taught, how do you write a judgment? How do you read a judgment? There is a structure to a judgment, but the style is so inconsistent. And in fact, around Diwali, two good things that happened. One, I have read the Chief Justice say that, start writing judgments in simple language. That's fantastic. If everybody started writing in simple language and started following, a pattern, our developers who are trying to do data analytics, they'll do wonders. We'll see fantastic data coming out of that, fantastic analysis coming out of all of that data. The other thing that I read was that the Delhi High Court has said that, any judge who's taking a leave should update the e-court system 1 day prior. This is around Diwali. The news had come on Bar and Bench. I read that. And I was like, wow, even this little one change, that if tomorrow I'm going on leave, I will update the e-court system today, so that the litigants, the lawyers, everybody knows that the judge is not available tomorrow. So if I am coming from Jaipur to Delhi, I will not come. The lawyer who has 5 cases in 5 different courts will not be running around. So those kind of changes, I think, so little efforts are happening everywhere. Similarly, look at law firms. I'll speak from the law firm's perspective. I think all good law firms will have a document management system, will have a time management system, will have technology for some technology that will help in drafting, proofreading, legal research. Now, then that's level 1. Now, level 2 is where you start using AI-based technologies, where there is some prediction and where there is time saving, where there is movement of, I would say levels of work that, where we say that lawyers need to spend the time doing hardcore legal work and let all the basic work, monotonous work be done by the technology. Not, that only enables you to focus more on what you actually should be focusing on. So those changes are happening. I think, the change that I have, at least in our firm, we've started doing is we've started having a bottoms up approach. The young lawyers are far more receptive and far more wanting to use technology to make their lives easy. So 2 things: they want to make their lives easy. They don't want to do work unnecessarily, which can be done by some technology or someone else. The other is that they are more tech friendly. So they don't shy away from using legal tech. They don't want to say, oh, we will be any less a lawyer if we use technology. They see, I'll be a far more powerful lawyer if I have technology as an enabler. Why shouldn't we be using technology? So that's a mindset shift that is happening at the bottom. Judiciary, like I said, I've seen these 2 very recent examples, which is fantastic. There are challenges. I think one challenge that, that I think is very important for the startups is investors. While the investors are very, interested in fintech still, legal tech, we need stronger, more aware investors in the legal tech space. And see, it's the demand and supply, it's also the investment. When I meet the applicants, for Prague, most of them are bootstrapped. They have a very big vision, they have a very big plan, but how much can they do within the money that they have from friends and family? They need investment. And today, that level of awareness is not there amongst the investors, where the investor says, oh, legal tech sounds very interesting, let's invest in the legal tech. and support these guys. So I think that is one thing that I'd like to see that also change, just as I've seen legal tech become an option in incubation, applications. I'd like to see that also as one of the changes. So I think all in all, we need to increase the demand, and that demand increases with awareness. That demand increases with talking to people. There has to be a proof of concept. One of the challenges, remember, so we are seeing our side, right? From a developer side, I'm seeing my side. Oh, I went and met this guy. I've met him 10 times. He always has great product, or he'll give me time, but he will not, it doesn't convert into business. And obviously my success is business, but you have to also see the other side. The lawyers are too busy. They're always busy, and they're always going to be busy. There are time pressures. I think one very important thing is that, some of them are open to using technology. They want to adapt, they want to use, and they want to test it also, but there's no time. Or you will go and ask, and I see that all of the time. The technology, say for example, is a contract drafting technology, document automation technology. The developer will say, okay, now when they show their document, we say, as lawyers, we say, this is easy because this is your document, right? You've got it, so your tool has learned it, your tool will show it as a fantastic output. I don't want to see that. I want to see what I give you. Okay, I'm going to give you a complicated document. Show me that magic on that complicated document. But when it comes to me giving that complicated document, what happens is all my work has a risk and confidentiality component. So I don't want to give that document. Okay, so then now when I don't give that document, then how do I test it? That is another problem. I have the will, I want to use it, I believe in it, but I'm not able to test it. And that now when I'm not able to test it on my document, I'm not able to trust the output. So that chance, will it be given or will it not be given? But I think we are seeing a lot of positive change. I think it'll be a slow journey. It'll take time, but it is happening. So now I cannot say that there is, stagnation, or this is just going to die very soon. It will not. It will pick up. And I think we have the pandemic to thank. Even individually in my own role, I have seen that there are so many things that we would have planned for the next 5 years or next 10 years. They have accelerated so much because of the pandemic. Pandemic has created the need for digitization, has created the need for, going virtual and becoming efficient and being paperless. Text, yes, but being paperless, bringing in consistencies, the value of using technology. If we had technology, then probably this, problem wouldn't have happened. So all of those things, I think, have led all the, decision makers to think about. I see so much coming from the e-committee as well. So I think we'll get there. We'll get there. It'll be slow, but we'll get there. And which is why the developers, the young entrepreneurs, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going, but make sure that you have a good problem to solve. Don't just go with just anything, because then you might have a rejection. You have to be sure of your offering, the problem that it is solving. So it's all positive.
Great. And then folks who are joining us in the for the roundtable, feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the Q&A tab. But before we sort of get into the Q&A, just one final question to both Namita and Pulkit. Just on the question that even asked Komal, right? What are one is just how has the sort of the ecosystem helped you? Like, what has been helpful for you? That the second is what are the real gaps, right? Again, or what are the, let's say, 2-3 things that as an entrepreneur you wish, hey, if I had that would just make my life a lot more easier and allow me to do what I do, what my value add is, right? I think Pulkit, you mentioned about the plumbing, which is a far more early stage, and then getting that data ready. So yeah, maybe Namita, you want to sort of talk a bit about that piece as well?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And honestly, what comes to my mind is, you've heard that saying which says it takes a village to raise a child. And I really, really think a startup is no different. It is literally the birth of a child in probably just not a tangible form, but it requires all your attention. It requires all your efforts. It requires dedication to raising that. And just like how a village is required to raise a child, I do believe an ecosystem is required for that startup to thrive. And especially in an industry like legal tech, which is so regulated. I mean, it is a regulation at the end of the day. And it's that ecosystem which creates, which just makes life easier for that startup to grow. I think that's the role of an ecosystem in this space. And what it also does is it also allows people who want to look at that sector in a more confident light, and which I think is the missing piece for any startup in the legal tech space, which is somebody, just saying that, yes, you know what, this is valid, this is absolutely correct. You don't need to worry just because it's modern. It is still absolutely in line with regulation, and law allows it. Because the biggest fear that any acceptance to legal tech solution has is the mindset that, okay, what if tomorrow this becomes illegal, or it's still not by the book, it's not mentioned anywhere that so and so solution can be adopted to so and so problem. But that's where the ecosystem can step in and say that, no, you know what, even though it may not be mentioned in black and white, it is still okay to do it this way. In fact, it's better to do it this way. Because I do understand that for laws to keep on updating and changing, it's going to be, the pace is going to be not as fast as technology is updating and changing. Technology is probably changing by the next day or the next week. But for laws to take that pace is still going to be a while. But that's where ecosystem can actually fit in and say that till the time laws are coming out, here's something that we're certifying that, okay, this is okay to solve it this way. In fact, we encourage adoption of technology or adoption of modern day solutions when it comes to legal problems. Because see, legal in a way is not really an independent industry. It also works on business, on family, on a lot of other industries as well. And those have all been revolutionized by tech, and this hasn't. So who's certifying that the bridge that we're building our companies on is stable or no? And that's where I think the ecosystem adds value. And of course, we've definitely benefited from the ecosystem providers in this space. And I have to definitely talk about Praram on that front as well. We were part of the second cohort, and it's literally, after that cohort, I did for the first time feel that, okay, I'm not missing out because I've not done a Harvard Law MBA. And that's what Praram gave to us. And it was so specific. And these are the kind of things that are actually making it easier for legal tech to thrive as well. All the other ecosystem providers, I'm sure even Omindar is doing fantastic work in this space. CIIE also has the incubation program, and there are many others as well that are actually helping startups. And it's about both of them continuing to work in sync to ensure that people adopt legal tech.
Got it. And maybe Pulkit, I know you sort of, again, to the previous, you talked about the plumbing piece that maybe philanthropy, maybe the government needs to really focus on, right? Like that basic infra. Is there anything else that you think, apart from this data piece that it's obvious that we need to unlock? Anything else that you think will be helpful?
So in terms of gaps, and I mean, before talking about gaps, let me just talk about what is working also, right? So, for example, you spoke about plumbing. Companies like Provakil is only possible because of the humongous work that is happening within the government, right? The projects like e-courts and the like, right? I mean, even the current judiciary is very forward looking in terms of where we need to be, right? So that is happening. There are organizations like so the incubator programs that we are talking about. Apart from that, one name that we haven't talked about is Agami Network. So for people who don't know, you should check it out. We were lucky to win their inaugural Agami Prize in 2018. And Sachin and Supriya are doing some great work bringing the ecosystem together. They're really tying it together. The reason I mention Agami is because the prize money that we won in 2018, right? That prize money helped us a long way in our time of need, right? And so I will never forget that in the journey of Provakil, right? So the gap that we have been talking about, Tariq, capital is a big ask, right? So private capital has to start flowing in the companies. And to be very honest, we at Provakil are quite baffled with why hasn't it happened yet, right? I'm not talking about public money or government intervention, right? I'm talking about private money. The scale at which private money is already flowing in the country for the last 5-6 years, right? it has not proportionately gone into legal tech, right? And that ideally needs to change, because this is not even true in other geographies, right? Like Namita spoke, ki 2020 mein out of several IPOs, 3 were legal tech. Legal tech is very mature in developed countries, right? And having said that, Provakil is a company which has global aspirations, right? So we have a dream and a vision where we are confident of having a solution which will be viable for a law firm in London or a practice in New York, right? So our ambition is not small. We are slowly chipping away towards that goal. But private capital really needs to start flowing at scale into legal tech, where I am sort of unable to pinpoint why is that that proportionate private capital has not gone into legal tech in India. And perhaps Tariq, that is a question for you to answer, perhaps on this call or otherwise. Shed some light why that is the case.
No, I think it's a good question, right? I think one of the biggest pieces is because the instinctive reaction often to when people say legal, I think Namita was talking about, right? Like we don't, when we close our eyes and we don't think of cutting edge innovation, right? Like it's almost at a macro level. So I think one of the things that we wanted to, and then this partnership with CICO is largely on that, is to change that perception. Hey, there are cutting edge innovations. There is a booming sector, especially over the last 2-3 years that's come in. There have been exciting models and people are adopting cutting edge tech and really transforming the way they do business within law. So I hope, and this is our first step in sort of moving that needle when it comes to like attracting other investors, helping us thinking about, look, what are the models that can sort of build not just for India, but also for the world, right? Because I think one thing India for all has really got is really high quality tech talent, right? And we've sort of built out, public digital infra that that's the envy of other countries. So that's the idea. The hope is that we will be able to support entrepreneurs and finally take some solutions at scale in India and then take them abroad as well. Final.
Tariq, there is just one thing that I'd like to say,
Sure.
to add to what Pulkit said.
Mm-hmm.
And Namita pointed out that 3 of the big legal tech companies went in for an IPO in 2020. Yeah. One thing that we have to understand is that when Pulkit says, that legal tech abroad is very, very big, how have they become big? Look, why have they become big? Because there is consistency, because there is digitization, because there are laws which require, contracts to be signed digitally. E-discovery is one of the biggest market. They need electronic document review, no filing, no paper, nothing, And the court says that before this pre-trial stage of e-discovery, you've got to make sure that even if the parties have collected a million documents, see what searches can you run on it to remove all unnecessary stuff and only spend money on the ones that relate to the case and that should be reviewed. So I think our problem is digitization. Yeah. The more digital consistency starts coming into our, and that problem. So I would say to everybody, I think all of us need to make an effort to go to the right people so that we can get the government, we can get the bodies to be thinking about how to solve this problem from the root. It's, that is the root cause. Today, legal tech talent is fantastic. They can do wonders if they got the right input. And that input, you and I cannot change. That input has to change from the government side. So if today it became mandatory that there will only be e-filing, if today it became mandatory that there will be only payment through payment gateway, no standing in the line, no parchi, no cash. We as citizens we will not say that no, we'll only pay by cash. We will have to follow what the government says. So that change, that realization that this is a mandate to be done, and then automatically things will. If today it became mandatory that you've got to have virtual hearings, of course, with all of the positive, that the requirements of the infrastructure and all of that, if all of that was in place and it was mandatory, virtual hearings, everybody, clients, lawyers, everybody join online. Will we not? How did we do? We were also having physical meetings at work. But then how did we switch to virtual? Because we had no choice. So I think if we can all make efforts to go to the right decision makers, and bring out this problem that solve digitization, solve digital literacy, and you see then how big legal tech can become in the country.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Komal. And one final question before sort of bring this panel to a close. Is what is the one piece of advice that you would have for anybody starting in this sector? And maybe Pulkit, I can start with you.
Yeah, so I think I'm just trying to think what else can I say apart from what I've already said. I think I cannot emphasize it enough, having a unique customer insight. If you are a lawyer, you have an insight. So I always say with technology companies, right? I mean, today when we talk about companies, it is hard not to imagine them as technology companies, right? Even Domino's is a technology company, right? So technology is the easiest piece. Trust me on that. As an engineer, as somebody who has built products for the last 10, 12 years of my career, from writing code to building products to product managing to managing a team of developers, I've been there, done it all. Technology is the easiest piece of it. Getting a unique customer insight, I think, is the most critical aspect of you getting early traction. And once you I think Namita also mentioned it in her one of her responses, where she said, "Don't build 1,000 features before you have validated 4 features." Right, and truer advice could not be given. Right, I think that is as true an advice that can be given.
Great, Namita.
I definitely would want to say that the time has never ever been better for somebody to capitalize on legal tech. Had this conversation been happening about 4-5 years ago, it would be a different era, and now it's the era of legal tech. So if you have a better way to solving a legal problem, and it's as Pulkit said, if you do have a unique customer insight, and if you come from the law background, don't worry about tech. Tech can be something that can be built upon. It's not a limiting factor. Just go ahead and do it and capitalize on all the movement that's happening in the legal tech space. The time has never ever been better.
Great. And finally, Komal.
I will say don't give up. No, if you cannot give up. You can't spend your precious time for a few years and say, okay, it doesn't work. Yeah, nobody supported me. No, you need to know that you're in for a very difficult journey. Don't give up. So only get into it when you are sure that you can, face all of the difficulties. It's a difficult journey.
Yeah. No, great. With that, I'll sort of bring I think we are over time, and we'll sort of bring this conversation to a close. Thanks so much to the panelists. Thanks, Pulkit, Namita, and Komal, for your time. It's been great sort of picking your brain on your own journeys in the sector. For anyone tuning in, if you have an exciting idea to transform law and justice, please do reach out to Citizen Innovation Lab, either on the social media handles or the website cil.cia.co. And yeah, we would sort of be excited to hear your story. Thank you once again to all the panelists and everyone else joining us.
Thank you. Complete pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.